Sports are back, episode 52 of The Next Best Bet. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy. We got a jam-packed episode because we got NASCAR, UFC, and golf this weekend. We also have a lot that has happened, Brett, in the MLB, in the NBA, NHL. We got it all for you here. But first, Brett, we got to go Beginners Boulevard.
Yeah, we gotta throw it all the way back. Back to a unit, which is just the normal amount you bet. And if you're betting $1,000 every night, a unit could be $1,000. If you're betting $5 a night, a unit could be $5. It's just your standard bet.
It's also what you typically want to base off of your bankroll. You never want to be betting the house on any single play. Typically, you want to take 5, 10, 20%, whatever you're comfortable with betting, depending on how frequent of a bettor you are. Try to base your unit off of that. And doesn't matter if it's $1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100, 1,000. A unit's very specific to any one person, but it's a term, Brett, that we mention every once in a while when we're talking about what we are on. So I think it's important that we bring it back up here at episode 52.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And we'll have a nice YouTube clip for everyone.
All right, but let's get into the MLB because there was big news on Wednesday as we were going through our work days, Brett, of what was going on in the MLB. It seemed like maybe there was going to be a deal. That was what was kind of getting pushed by Ken Rosenthal and Jeff Passan. And then it seemed to be like pump the brakes. But at least Rob Manfred and Tony Clark are in a room, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what took them so long to meet. That was the most puzzling thing in my mind. It just didn't make sense to me. Like, how did you not talk face to face for almost 3 months?
I understand coronavirus made quarantines and this and that, but Skype, apparently it seemed rather cold, but there is a potential proposal of a fully prorated deal to the players for 60 games or so. That's probably going to get tossed back. Might end up settling on a number, but Brett, is there a reignition of the fire of a hopeful baseball season with a postseason?
Well, MLB had a big press release, and Rob Manfred basically said him and Tony Clark left their meeting with a jointly developed framework that we agreed could form the basis of an agreement and subject to conversations with our respective constituents, which to me means a whole lot of we still have some stuff to work out, but we finally made some progress, and I think that's good. Um, but I don't know how soon it's all going to get worked out. I feel confident that it's going to get worked out. Some people were throwing out like July 19th as a start date, so that would be about a month away. And
The date. Oh, sorry.
no, that's good. Yeah, but with that July 19th I saw floated out there, that would be about a month away, so you'd have to think they'd maybe meet again face to face.
The other date that Jeff Passan threw out was a 60-game season ending around September 27th with this expanded postseason setting. Now, what the players had wanted was to play a longer form season that went until October 31st. That's been deemed too long, and the MLB seems to be trying to chip down on that because they do want this playoff because of the playoff money. I think it was interesting, though, Brett, the way this news came out in terms of how it rolled out on Twitter, at least. The Players Association seemed to try to get out in front of it. They tweeted immediately, reports of an agreement are false. Because briefly around noon here on the West Coast, I was going to lunch, and it sounded like maybe we had a deal. But then Jeff Passan tweeted out some specifics a few minutes after the Players Association tweet saying the 60 games, September 27th, along with Ken Rosenthal sending out some tweets. The interesting part of what Passan sent was in his second tweet, though. The MLB's last offer to the players maxed out at $1.5 billion. The money over a 60 game season at full pro rata, $1.5 billion. So he says if there's a deal that's going to get done, it's going to be more than 60 games, most likely.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's good to know. And I think it's good that the players are going to get their full pay. And um, it finally feels like they're negotiating a little bit versus like what they were doing before, which was basically saying, I want this. Yeah, I don't really care what you want. I want this. Yeah, we don't really care what you want. We want this. Like, and in negotiations, you aim high and usually settle somewhere in the middle. So that kind of feels where we're going to be.
Another interesting thing, Brett, is that the MLB Players Trust commits $1 million to help the minor league players with coronavirus relief right now, which is very important considering all that the minor league's going through in terms of there's probably going to be a shrinkage because the deal with them in the majors is up after this season is over, or if there is even a season at this point. But the MLB players are trying to get the narrative ahead of the story, it seems, right now, instead of the organization, or instead of the MLB as a league.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know exactly what the players' trust is, but it's good that they're helping out the minor leaguers, and they definitely need all the help they can get with, like you said, the. It looks like the minor leagues are going to be cut down a little bit, and I'm not sure we'll ever go back to a Mike Piazza getting picked in the 60th round. I'm sure it'll go back to more than 5 rounds, but 60 seems like a long ways away.
There are a lot of questions left in baseball, that is for sure. But let's get to some of the harder news here, Brett. In the NBA, they released 113 pages in terms of player safety, of health and safety manual, and this thing was packed to the brim with each phase really broken down in steps that they are taking to mitigate risks with the coronavirus.
Yeah, without a doubt, my favorite part of the whole thing was how to disinfect the basketballs. Um, you mix a quarter teaspoon of dish detergent, like Dawn, right? Per gallon of water. Then you clean the basketball with a cloth or towel, wipe down the basketball with the dish detergent water mix, further wipe down the basketball with water alone, allow the basketball to air dry, and then once dry, you spray the basketball with an EPA approved disinfectant. And that was my favorite thing from the whole 113 pages. Now, when I go to the park, I know how to clean my basketball up to NBA standards.
Yeah, if you ever get a basketball that you find in the closet or something and you want to go and clean it, that might do a pretty good job at that. Is a very thorough basketball cleaning process that you just mentioned, Brett.
That's
But
NBA standard right there. NBA standard.
NBA standard cleanliness. And they worked with the CDC throughout this entire manual that they proposed and gave out to the league. It involves magic bands that are mandatory for everyone to wear on the Orlando Disney campus. It functions as their room keys, security checkpoints, and coronavirus testing check-ins. Basically, an ID bracelet. And then there's also an anonymous tip line if anyone's breaking some of the rules in this 113 page book. Because that's basically what it is, Brett. It's a book. It's 113 pages. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, I guess a book is what you would call it, a handbook. But the magic wristbands were cool. What about the an optional ring that you can wear that like might detect early signs of COVID? And um it's interesting that they mentioned, or Zach Lowe mentioned, that the teams won't have access to the data, which I think is important because I don't, it's going to be tracking your heart rate and all these things. Like, you don't need someone being like, "Oh, actually, this guy's not as healthy as we thought, so we're gonna pay him less money." No one wants that. So you protect the players a little bit, but also give them a way to stay protective against the virus. I think that was a good idea.
And then, interestingly, the refs will not have to wear masks. Players in the front row on the benches, they won't have to wear masks either, but the second row of players and coaching staff, they do unless the player is active. So there are steps. There's going to be two rows instead of the traditional sideline that I guess you see uh, when there is a crowd. So obviously, there's continued adjustments. The penalties for if a player leaves campus, although they're not forced to stay there, but if they leave without prior approval, there is a deep nasal swab test that happens, 10 to 14 day self quarantine period, and a reduction in compensation from any games player is unable to play due to leaving campus. And I believe it's like a 1/190th of the game's paycheck that the player loses, something around there.
Yeah, I mean, basically, just stay on campus. They're gonna get an early screening of the new Marvel movie I saw. They're gonna be able to play golf. They're gonna be able to play cards.
It
Um,
is the Disney campus. There's a lot of nice things there.
yeah, they're gonna be able to do some things. So just stay on campus. I did see like you'll be able to leave like if your wife's having a baby or things like that. So it is good that they're writing all this out and making players sign that stuff, like what you were saying with all the college stuff we spoke with on the last episode. Like, everyone should commit to and sign to keeping everyone safe, and they should agree to punishments that if you're not following these rules. But um, I just I don't expect too many players to be going outside the bubble. I expect them to all show up with their own weed, and no one's gonna have to call the weed dealer.
And for the players that are hesitant on whether they want to actually play or not, whether it's for health reasons or social justice reasons, the litany of reasons that players have voiced concerns for, uh, they aren't required to necessarily participate in the Orlando event, but they should. They're supposed to notify the teams of their intent by June 24th, so the players can set their active rosters.
Yeah, and I actually kind of think it's important that there's two groups that that don't have to like follow this date. It's the people whose the medical advice has been sent out. So like if the league writes back and they're like, hey, we don't think you should come based on your medical records, or we spoke about that a few episodes ago. The team of physicians that all the NBA teams are sending out all the medical records to. If they come back and they're like, "Hey, you're probably not the one that should be going to this bubble. You're at increased risk or whatever." There's no punishment whatsoever, and you just take your time and decide what you need to do.
That process of how you are determined to be high risk or excused for health reasons is determined and outlined in this 113-page handbook health and safety manual because, like I said, it's 113 pages.
Well,
They've got everything,
and did you
including how to
see?
disinfect a basketball, like Brett said.
Did you see the Orlando airport issues?
I did not.
Oh my god. So they tested like 500 employees, right?
Okay.
And 260 of the employees came back positive for COVID.
Ooh.
And all these teams are supposed to be flying in there, and I think they're looking for some other options right now.
Maybe going back to the bussing it across the country style.
I don't
That
know
would
what
be it.
they're
That
gonna
would make it
do.
an interesting NBA season. I don't know how players would like that.
I don't know what they're gonna do, but it definitely raised some eyebrows for me. I was like, huh. So we're just gonna fly everyone into this airport. Okay, good luck.
Another thing you pointed out to me before the season, or before this episode started, was that the potential of trying to schedule to keep teams in the proper time zones, even though everything's going to be played in Orlando. They're going to try to have the West Coast teams play a little later.
Yeah, there's gonna be multiple games a day to start, obviously, and then what they're gonna do is they're gonna have to clean everything. And the way they're gonna kind of schedule the games out is, you'll have some earlier games, some midday games, and some late night games. And the reason you're doing that is you'll have like the Lakers and the Trailblazers, and Phoenix is also out there. Sacramento is out there. The Clippers are out. Those teams play late at night because that's when their fan bases are off from work. But the East Coast teams can play a little bit earlier, and I think it'll be scheduled as close to keeping the teams in the time zones as possible. Even though, like you said, all the games will obviously be in Eastern Standard Time.
I think the NBA has the train on the tracks. It's moving. It's on its way to Orlando. And as these issues are popping up, they're putting out the fires. They're getting everything situated and sorted. I'm confident they're gonna have their season, even though every time something comes out, it's like, but what about this? But what about this? I think the NBA is gonna figure things out and get everything sorted. The NHL has still remained quiet, but they're also on the way to getting things sorted. I mean, players are not required to wear face shields when play resumes, so they're letting out some of the notices in terms of health and safety. They're worried a lot more about off ice protections than on ice. It doesn't seem like players are going to be expected to wear any additional face gear or face shields on their helmet, but off ice, they're going to be tested daily, and there will be additional off ice measures that they're talking about.
Yeah, and as they continue to announce things, I'm sure we'll get more and more information.
Justin Trudeau said that Canada is open to the possibility of a hub city, though, so there's at least that positive in the sense of Toronto very well being the possibility, and Brett, you going two for two.
I I hate to be the guy that just says "I told you so" all the time, Higgins, but like I win a lot with our with our little bets here.
Hey, we follow the pillars of you and I not being on the same bet, though, and
That's
typically
true.
one of us is right. This time you've been right twice.
There we go.
I never
There.
hated the Vegas pick, though. I was sold on that being NBA, so the NHL kind of snuck up on me for that being a possibility.
You were so concerned about how many hockey rinks there were. I was like, don't worry about that. We need hotels.
However, the Seattle hockey rink seems to be months behind schedule. Apparently, this isn't going to be much of a big deal, though, because there's still expected to be plenty of time before the 21 to 22 season that Seattle does fine. Because obviously, coronavirus set back the construction schedule, but it doesn't seem to be too big of a deal, just minor.
Am I? Is their name the Kraken? Is that their team name?
Have they officially figured that out yet?
I
The
wasn't
Kraken does
sure.
sound right. I do remember hearing that. I don't know if that was settled on, though.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is the Kraken. All right, go Kraken.
The Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be interesting when they're in the league, and I'm excited to see how that fan base reacts to the Seattle Kraken, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, they have some time to get that arena ready. I'm sure they'll have it ready.
I mean, Vancouver is just across the border on the Pacific Northwest, so I think it's about time that Seattle or Portland or someone in the Pacific Northwest got a hockey team. It's a very, very good time for that to happen. Another good time for this to happen is Buffalo cleaning house. I mean, they fired their general manager, who the co owner said just back in May that they were confident in. But then with the draft getting pushed to the fall, they decided to make a move. And it included quite a bit of their scouts, too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess when you miss the playoffs for an extended period of time, you haven't been bringing in high level talent. But yeah, I'm surprised Buffalo made this move because back in May it didn't seem like they were gonna make this move. Um, but it's mid June now and things change, so I guess the Sabres had a different opinion when they woke up this morning.
9 straight seasons without making it to the NHL playoffs, the longest active streak in the NHL, I believe. And considering it's an expanded playoff scenario that even sounds worse right now, 12 of the 21 AHL coaches and scouting staff in Rochester are gone. Buffalo's going full rebuild, it seems.
Yeah, well, and it's also one of those things like, when both your teams are bad in Buffalo, for instance, or in New York, when all the teams are bad, no one really sticks out. But like the Bills have all this hype going right now. They've been in the playoffs back to back years. All of a sudden, the Sabres, you're like, hey, what the fuck are these guys doing? Like, why aren't they up to snuff? Why aren't they making the playoffs? I mean, Jack Eichel, right? He's supposed to be one of the best American players in the league right now, and you can't get him any help. So, it kind of makes sense that they're looking for some new leadership there.
Absolutely. The NHL seems like they're getting it together, though. We'll see if Toronto actually is going to be the second one. I believe they said June 22nd is when they're going to be announcing officially their hub cities, even though Vegas is all but confirmed at this point. But let's get on to some NFL news, Brett, because Kaepernick's name was brought up twice recently. I mean, Anthony Lynn made the initial comments a few days ago when he said it would be, quote, crazy for teams to not add Kaepernick to the list of players to work out. And I mean, I'd say I agree with him. You have to at least take the look, especially with the way he used to play and where the NFL is going right now in terms of offensive schemes.
Yeah, I mean, he was a starting quarterback for a team in the Super Bowl. Like, it wasn't that, I mean, I guess it was that long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Like, the other starting quarterback in that game, Joe Flacco's still hanging around, and I think Kaepernick has a little more left in the tank than that guy.
I mean, the knock of a dual threat quarterback was always the longevity that of the dual threat. But Michael Vick broke that, and he had a few years break from the league for a different reason. Kaepernick has been working out, he said, daily for the past 4 years since he left the league in anticipation of it. He had that tryout last year. I think he's going to be given a shot. Anthony Lynn, who is looking for a quarterback with the Chargers in Los Angeles, maybe he could very well be one of those spots that gives him a workout. I wonder how many teams are interested in trying to schedule Kaepernick right now and what situations he's willing to go to and where he's willing to put himself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also curious, like, with all that's going on, like, are there bigger fish to fry? Is he more concerned about continuing his social activism? And, that's okay too.
I mean, President Trump said the NFL should welcome Kaepernick back if his abilities were to play well enough to earn a spot on the team. So basically, if his abilities there, you should put him in there. Donald Trump, I think, is even trying to just go with the flow and make it a non-story right there. But Kaepernick, he has a lot of options right now, and I don't know. I think you may be right. I don't know if he necessarily has to go back to the NFL with what he does in the social justice community, but also the platform the NFL brings, and with the amount of support NFL players have said with kneeling with him, it could be a very special moment in the NFL this season if you were to see him back in the league with a team. I would love to see it personally.
Yeah, I'm a big Kaepernick fan, so I hope it works out however he wants it to work out.
Did you see the English Premier League started their season back up with all the players taking a knee?
Oh, and I saw they were all wearing Black Lives Matters jerseys, so I did see something. I didn't see the knee, but that's very cool as well.
Absolutely, and they're also playing without fans right now in empty arenas over across the pond in Europe. Let's get to the golf and let's get to this weekend, Brett, though, because we've been talking for a bit of what's going to happen, but the weekend's here, the weekend's now. We got a few bets, at least I do, with the golf. It's going to be the RBC Heritage at Harbortown Golf Links in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. And this is a pretty known golf course for a few guys, and it'll be interesting to see who can ride the wave from last week, who can fix some errors, and who's going to continue sliding down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even really want to take up more time. You found some great notes for the golf this week, and I just want to let you shine.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. One person I like that I think is good value, but I'm not going to be there on him. Rory at plus 1200 to win. Even though he's the favorite, I think those are pretty good odds for the front. I've seen some other books that had him as low as 1,000. I think if you could grab him at 1200 right now, you might as well because it's going to continue to drop, at least in the initial rounds. I'm going to go with two top five finishes, though, to start. Justin Thomas at plus 350 and Colin Morikawa from plus 550. Morikawa is a value pick. He's moved from plus 930 at the last Sunday start, and he played so well on Sunday that they brought him up to 550 on action by now. I'm going to grab that before it moves anymore. And him and Justin Thomas, each finishing in the top five. I think they both played well last week. I think it's a solid play. And then the other one's a bit of a prop bet. No hole in one in the event. There's four par threes at this course. Each of them are around 180 to 200 from the tips, at least on their scorecard. We'll see where the pros are playing at. But there was a hole in one last week. These are hard to come by. I don't know if it's going to happen 2 weeks in a row coming out of coronavirus. I'm taking no hole in one in the event, and I found that at plus 110.
Yeah, no hole in one. Okay, that's a fun one.
It was minus 150 the other way, saying that there would be a hole in one, though.
Wow, I think it's more like wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. That's an interesting handicap.
Now, the favorite guy to consider, though, I think, and I'm leaning there right now. I don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger on him or not, or if I'm going to go top five or winner, or what I'm going to do with this. Matt Kuchar, he's only missed the cut at this course one time, all the way back in 2003, the first time he played this course, and he's had six top 10 finishes every time that he's played there since. And it's his birthday on Sunday. So if he's in contention, turns 42 years old. For those that know Spaceball, that's the answer to the universe. He could very well get a win potentially on Sunday. I don't know where he's sitting right now off the top of my head, but I'm leaning there. Just got to figure out what action I'm going to end up putting on Matt Kuchar.
All right, I love the Kucher statue throughout. I'll probably find myself betting some Matt Kucher something or other throughout the weekend.
Oh, he
But
finished second last year.
yeah, that's important to note as well. Um, but I've got one bet for Thursday. Max Homa in a three ball bet, plus 185 against Adam Hadwin and Dylan Fratelli. So I think Homa's going to win that group at plus 185. And that's all I'm on so far. But like I said, I'm sure I'm going to find myself on something Kucher related this weekend.
And then going into the UFC, it's another UFC fight night, so unless you're a big MMA fan, most of these names will be unfamiliar to you. I kind of know the main event fighters of Curtis Blades versus Alexander Volkov. It's the heavyweights. It's going to be a big fight. And remember, this is up at the UFC Apex still, so it's still that smaller ring of 25 feet instead of the 30 feet that it typically is, I believe. And Volkov is 6'7". That might be a little too big for this small of a ring. And he seems to be the underdog at plus 310. I like Blades at not at minus 400 though, so I'm going to wait until some method of victories come out. Both of them are strikers. Blades is also a wrestler though. Maybe look at a submission. We'll see what those odds shake out to be though.
Yeah, Blades reminds me of the Wesley Snipes like vampire killing movie. Like, weren't there? Wasn't he a? He might have just been Blade. Was he just Blade? Yeah, I
I'm
think he
not
was
sure.
Blades. I think he
I'm
was
not
Blades.
sure.
But anyway,
But Blades is a great name,
it's a good
especially with
name.
the Y randomly thrown in there too.
Yeah, that's a good spelling of it too. It really unique. So Blades minus 400. Uh I'd have to look at the reach in this one as well, but Volkov being the bigger dude, I don't know. Maybe if they're in tight quarters, maybe it's just an advantage for the bigger dude.
Well, so Volkov is 80. They both have an 80-inch reach.
Okay, so there's no reach advantage, but Volkov's got 3 inches and 2 pounds, so I don't
And he's
know.
a 31-7 fighter out of Russia, fighting an American that's 13-2. I think I'm gonna take the younger guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, Blades is clearly the favorite here, but you said maybe the smaller ring's a disadvantage for the bigger guy. I don't know. Maybe you're just like, you're so close together. It's an advantage for the big guy.
And it is just important to remember it's at the UFC Apex facility, and that's why there is that smaller ring. So we'll see how that does play out. But there is another wide card of fighters, and I'm probably gonna find myself on there, on that channel, because I have ESPN Plus watching UFC again on Saturday night.
Yep, that's fun. And then the last big event this weekend, the NASCAR. We are actually going to be in Talladega this weekend for the Geico 500. But last weekend was at Homestead, and Denny Hamlin actually took home the victory and did a little Jordan shrug at the end. Now, he is good friends with Michael Jordan, and um, he's actually a Jordan sponsored athlete, but it was pretty funny. I saw a picture he put on Instagram of the guy from the Jordan doc, Michael Jordan, and Denny Hamlin all doing the shrug.
Michael Jordan's been competing himself as well. Do you see the big marlin that he took on his boat the other day, like 450 pounds or something? He
Yeah, he
caught
was
this
in that fishing
massive fish
competition. Yeah, I
on
did
the
see that.
Catch 23.
Not
That's the
bad.
name of his boat.
Not bad.
But let's I think we've given out plenty, Brett. I don't know if I'll end up finding myself on UFC. Let the people know if you end up getting on some NASCAR though, or social media at Next Best Bet on Instagram, at NBB Pod on Twitter, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page. We'll post other picks that we have there throughout the weekend as well. This has been episode 52 of the Next Best Bet. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk again after the weekend.